In this tutorial, we will learn how to create a crosshatch. Crosshatches are used to fill entities which have closed polylines. Single objects as well as clustered groups can be hatched. Let's look at the various parameters available to us on the hatch property sheet. Hatch 1, Hatch 2. Each entity can have a crosshatch with two different hatchings. The radio buttons allow to switch between the two hatching definitions. These are independent of one another and must be created individually. When switching between the two hatch style sheets, you must click the Apply button before leaving the current hatch style sheet or all changes will be lost. Original values. This switch is useful if the entities have been scaled or rotated after hatching and allows to rehatch the entity with the original values. It is highly recommended this setting be selected if you ever plan on resizing an entity at later date. Keep angle. If checked, the angle is relative to the entity's rotation when rehatching the object. So, if rotating a hatched entity and rehatching the entity with this flag set, the hatch lines are relative to the entity rotation angle. This is important when specialized hatches are used, as in our example with the letter L. Enable. If this option is chosen, the current hatch definition is activated. Sort. This is a specialized tool and is not recommended for most hatches. Distance. Distance between two hatch lines in millimeters. For the most part, this is defined by your optical setup. For example, a spotted focus with a 35 micron diameter might have a 0.030 millimeter distance to provide some overlap. Angle. The angle to the x-axis in degrees. Style. The movement direction can be defined by clicking on the button with the bitmap. The blue lines on the bitmap show the mark lines and their direction. The red lines show the scanner jumps. This setting can greatly affect your cycle times. As such, we suggest that you experiment with the available style types and note the cycle times and results specific to your needs. Start offset. Define start distance between object's outer line and first hatch line. The default value is 0, which means distance is taken as start offset. End offset. Defines end distance between object's outer line and last hatch line. Line reduction. Shortens the hatch lines. This feature is useful when overprinting or trenching at the junction of the outline and fill occurs. Num loops. This specialized hatch generates a series of concentric paths which can reduce cycle times by reducing the number of start and stop dwells, but has a number of caveats. Don't fill rest. If checked, only num loops get hatched. The object gets not hatched inside the loops. We'll show this in our examples in just a moment. Equalize distance. Change distance so that start offset and end offset can exactly be set by the hatcher. Normally, this should be selected. Use as default. Uses the actual hatch style of the currently selected object as default for new entities. The program saves these settings also for a new program start in case save settings on exit is checked in the general settings. Apply. After defining the distance, the angle, and the style, clicking on Button Apply will generate the hatch lines. Okay, let's try a few examples. Let's start with a simple rectangle 25 mm by 25 mm. Zoom into the rectangle entity using the Fit Selected tool. Now select the Hatch property sheet. First choose Hatch number 1 and check the Enable button. This is required to make changes to the hatch. Ensure original values, keep angle, enable, and all lines are selected while sort is not selected. We'll set our distance to 0.03 mm with an angle of 0. Now click the Apply button. Use the Zoom tool and zoom in on the upper right corner of the rectangle. See how the lines are evenly spaced at 30 microns? Now let's change the angle to 45 degrees and click the Apply button once again. The hatch is now rotated to 45 degrees relative to the x-axis. The line reduction tool allows a simple offset from the edge to the hatch. We'll try a value of 0.04 mm again, pressing Apply. Okay, let's try another. Select the Num Loops tool and hit Apply. We see the normal 45-degree hatch with a slight offset. Why? Because the software is filling the remaining area that doesn't have a race car hatch applied. Make the number of loops 20 and hit Apply. See how a number of circular tracks were created? This is very useful for creating a bold outline font or logo. If we select the Don't Fill Rest feature and hit Apply, the inner region is no longer hatched at all, and that is hatching at its best. This ends the hatch creation lesson.